We'll move this little ladybug out of the way and zoom in a little bit. Okay, perfect. All right. Let's see. Of course, it's for one person that's not here. Isai, can you help me out first?
Yeah.
Do you want to do number 1 or 2?
1.
All right. So for number 1, what's the very first step in our process?
Switch fx or gx to y.
Perfect. So I'm going to have y equals 3x plus 4. And then what do I do next?
You switch y and x.
Yeah, so in step 2, I'm going to have x equals 3y plus 4. And in step 3, I need to solve for y. So what do I do first?
Subtract by 4.
Perfect. So minus 4, I should get x minus 4 equals 3y. And what's the very last step here?
Divide by 3.
Perfect. Divide by 3. So these guys cancel, and you're left with y equals x minus 4 over 3. And then step 4, what's the very last thing?
Go back to the f negative 1 over x.
Right. How do we say that?
Inverse function?
Yeah, f inverse. And actually, since our function was named g, we want to use g inverse of x. So g inverse of x equals x minus 4 over 3. Okay, it sounded like somebody was trying to come in, so Amaya's here now. Welcome, Amaya. So this is the process for finding the inverse function for our g of x. What questions does everybody have? Isai, you did a great job. Thank you very much. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know. We're going to go ahead and do number 2. If there are no questions, Juan, will you help me out with number 2, please? Juan?
Yeah.
All right, so let's do number 2 together. The very first step, what is it? What am I going to do?
I don't know.
So what did we do in this step?
We switched the G to Y.
Yes, we should probably do the same thing here, right?
Yeah.
So what do I write?
G Y equals
Y equals what?
G x minus 1.
Yep.
Squared minus 7.
Perfect. All right, and step 2, what did we do?
We would add 4 here. We would add 7.
Well, we got to do something first. What's the difference between this line and that line?
Does it have an x?
Yeah, the y changed to an x, and what did the x change to?
A y.
Yeah, so we got to flip-flop the y and x. So what am I going to write over here?
So it's going to be x equals y minus 1 squared minus 7.
Perfect. Thank you. And then in step 3, what were you saying we needed to do with this 7?
Plus 7.
Yep, plus 7 on both sides. So x plus 7 equals y minus 1 quantity squared. Now, how do I get rid of that square?
You multiply?
No, what's the opposite of squaring?
Isai, help me out.
It's got the same word in it. So the opposite of squaring is square.
Square root?
Yeah, square rooting. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Okay, and remember when you take the square root, you have to have both plus and minus the square root. So I'm going to end up with y minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of x plus 7. And now what's the only thing left with y?
To move it.
Yeah, how do I move it? I have minus 1. How do I get rid of that minus 1?
You add.
Yeah, so plus 1 plus 1. So I'm going to have 1 plus or minus the square root of x plus 7 equals y. Okay. And then the very last step, what do I do?
Sheet.
So what did I do here? What's the difference?
You changed it back to G?
Yeah, but in this case, it's f. And I'm not putting it back to f. I'm putting it to f inverse of x. All right, great. So this is the final answer here. Final answer there. Very good job. What questions does anybody have about those two problems? You didn't put the plus or minus here and just had plus. It's fine. Sometimes they do that too. So don't worry about that too much. Okay, if there are no questions on that warm-up, please make sure you have it copied down because we're going to be turning these in eventually. Have it copied down, and we are going to go ahead and start our notes for today. So we are talking about domain and range. So let me just enlarge this document camera. So let's look at today's activities. I think we're here. Okay, so everything that you need for today's class will be under modules. If you go down to our date for today, we're on the 15th. So if you click on activity 1, Microsoft Teams meeting, my computer is taking a minute to load the page. So if you click on today's activity 1, you should be able to find our notes on set and interval notation. There are both blank notes and filled in notes. So if you feel like I'm going too fast, please open up these solutions and you can have the filled in copy right there. We're also going to do domain and range on our sticky note graphs. So make sure that you have those up. And the solutions for them are right here if you feel like you're not keeping up. And then today's classwork will be this domain and range practice. And then you have a discovery ed activity for domain and range in activity 3 for your homework. Okay, so we're going to start with this set and interval notation. Okay, so when we talk about domain and range, you're going to be asked to write the domain or the range in either set or interval notation. So we're going to kind of review that first. Okay, so in this first little box, they give us the number line graph, but they don't give us the set notation or the interval notation. So I think that you guys are probably more familiar with the interval notation. So we're going to start there. So in interval notation, you have the starting number and the ending number, and then you put brackets around it depending on how the endpoints are. Okay, so for this very first example, Heaven, are you there?
Yes.
What's the very first number on this number line?
You said the very first number?
Yeah, where do we start at for this particular interval?
0.
Yeah, so I'm going to have 0. And where do I end?
7.
Perfect, thank you. Now, Brandy, are you here? Brandy?
I'm here.
Perfect. So we have, do we have open or closed circles right here?
Are they closed?
Well, they're open.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see well.
It's okay. So if we have a circle like this that's not filled in, we have an open circle. And that means we do not include that value. If I have a circle like this, it's closed. That means we do include the value. Okay? And I'm going to tell you guys that when we have the open circle, we're going to use round parentheses. When we have the closed circle, we're going to use square parentheses, depending on which end we're on. So Brandy, which type of parentheses am I going to use for these two open circles?
The The normal parentheses?
Yeah, the round ones. So these are round and these are square. Okay, so both of these have open circles. The 0 has an open circle, so it gets a round parenthesis. The 7 has an open circle, so it gets a round parenthesis. So this is the interval notation for this particular interval on the number line. Okay, what questions do you guys have about that? Okay, if there are no questions, we're going to go ahead and talk about set notation for this particular interval. So in set notation, we start and end with curly braces every time. Okay. And our set is going to look like, we're going to put an X in here. We're going to say X is, and this line right here means such that. So we're choosing X's such that the X value is going to be between 0 and 7. Okay, and I picked the less than signs, the strictly less than signs, not less than or equal to, because I want open circles right here. Okay, I want to represent that. What questions do you guys have about this? So that set notation is probably pretty new. We just have curly braces on the ends. We pick a variable, and that variable is going to represent any number that could be between our boundary points. Okay. You don't necessarily have to pick X. You could pick A or Y or B. And you could do like B such that B is between 0 and 7. Okay, so for this next problem, they give us interval notation, but they don't give us the number line or the set notation. So let's go ahead and draw the number line first. So, Ayana, are you there? Ayana Presley? Okay, Nakai, are you here?
Yes, ma'am.
So for this one, what should my lowest number be? What should the first number on the left be?
A -3.
Yeah, so I'm going to put a -3 right here. And should I have an open or closed circle right there?
It's going to be closed.
Perfect. And then what should my upper bound be?
+6.
Perfect, +6. And should I have an open or closed circle there?
That's going to be closed.
Perfect. And then I'm going to draw my line straight between those guys. Okay, thank you so much, Nakaya. All right, and then for the set notation here, this is going to be very similar to the one above because we have an interval between two values, just like we had an interval between two values up here. But this time, so I'm going to have the X such that this time I need to use less than or equal to signs, and I'm using 6 and -3 because this time I have the closed circle. This means that I'm going to have, I'm going to include that point, okay? So when I have a closed circle, I could have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. When I have open, I could have strictly less than or strictly greater than, okay? So all of those things are correlated with one another at the top. Okay, so what questions do you guys have on that second one? Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, perfect.
When you do the set notation, what is that one for?
Oh, this guy?
Yeah.
It's like a bar. They call it a midline. And it just means such that. So it's saying that we're picking random variables or random numbers X such that those X's have to be between -3 and +.
Okay, so whenever we write the set notation, we gotta put that bar.
Exactly.